Hey everybody, this is Rex Bear with Leak Project. I've been doing a lot of research and deep thought into the Archon Anunnaki connection. Now, when I read the Epic of Gilgamesh and connected that to the Holy Bible, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Enoch, the Watchers, etc., Yaldabaoth, in my opinion, from the research that I've done, is Yahweh. And Yahweh, from the research that I've done, is Enlil. So if you read the Atrahesis or the Epic of Gilgamesh, those predate the Genesis version of the Bible that you have access to. Now, to add to this, Mauro Bellino, a translator that speaks multiple languages, he also worked for the Vatican for several years translating scriptures, and he talks about the Anunnaki as well. Now, you can call them the Anu or the Anunnaki, and it's up to you what specific title you want to give them. Some people also, I'm included in this band camp, think that the Watchers are the Anunnaki. Now, the Nephilim are something completely separate according to these scriptures, such as the Book of Enoch, the Book of Giants, and the Nephilim, I think, are also still around and walk among us today, but look a lot more like you and myself. There could be some minor traits there. I don't look at them as people that are bad. I think that this whole battle that we see in these scriptures that go back thousands of years, at least 6,000 years to the Sumerian translations, which probably predate that, pre-flood, pre-deluge, etc. Well, if that's the case, then it was possibly more of a political, looking at something, seeing these amazing people come down that have these incredible abilities. You think of them as gods or fallen angels because that's what they say, when in reality, they're just a race of people from somewhere else with more advanced technologies, and that's the description that they give. And then when these fallen angels or watchers or Anunnaki start having sex with the earth women, then the leader of that tribe, essentially, or of that organization says, no, you can't do that. It's just like somebody that would be extremely nationalist here, I guess you could say, that says, no, you have to marry somebody that's within our culture. You can't marry somebody out of that culture. It's the same concept. So they would say, essentially, if you don't follow those guidelines, well, that's a sin. You're going to go to hell. Think of different ways to create these scenarios to freak people out to follow certain rules. And it just is that whole conspiracy agenda, in my opinion. I think that religion is one of the biggest conspiracies of all time. Now, I'm not against people that are religious by any means. I mean, I know some awesome people that are religious. I just think that it's good for them to have an open mind to go where the evidence leads them. Go where the evidence leads you. Please do not take my word for it. Read the Epic of Gilgamesh. Read the Atrahesis. They're not even that long of reads. And once you read them, you're like, oh my gosh. Enki, Enlil, the Anunnaki, Ishtar, these fallen angels, whatever you want to call them, title you want to give them, they're all interconnected there. So with that said, if Yaldabaoth is Enlil, then that means the Archons are the Anunnaki. They're one and the same. They're not some parasitic, vampiric life force that feeds off of emotions. Now, could the Anunnaki be feeding off of our emotions? Absolutely. Could they have put something in our DNA or be using some type of technology to feed off of the ups and downs? I absolutely think so. Yet, I don't think that the Archons are separate from the Anunnaki anymore. Before I read those texts, those Sumerian texts, and I'm going to be diving deep into the Sumerian stuff, you guys, so stay updated. And also, if you go to leakproject.com, become an exclusive member, a premium member at leakproject.com, you'll get access to exclusive content. I have been updating the members only section. I also just uploaded a really cool podcast about 10 minutes ago on there, so make sure to check it out. It had some really good predictions that Heidi Vandenberg, on North Korea, and we also talked about several rich and infamous people, so make sure to check that out. And also, I want to thank everybody that has become or became a premium member at Leak Project. Thank you guys. Your contributions definitely help Leak Project stay afloat. I actually was asked by a friend of mine a couple days ago if I could help him at his work because he's been shorthanded. And so I've been moonlighting the past couple of days. And it's interesting to kind of go back into the public speaking side of things also and spend 8-10 hours a day doing that and then coming home doing this again, which is fine. I don't mind it. But I certainly see when I go out into public and I leave my garage why the world is just so messed up. I mean, talk about idiocracy. You make a phone call and ask somebody a question on the phone that is their job title, and they sound like they don't even understand what you're talking about. It's just ridiculous. I'll get into some of the personal stories here later, but it's just fascinating that it's 2017 and people are as ignorant and just there's just no passion anymore. I mean, you go to a restaurant or a store or just out into public, and where's that passion with people? Where's that excitement that people used to have? It just seems like people are just doing the bare minimum to get by and then just go home and sit down on their soda, sit down on their sofa, suck down some diet soda, and wither away into oblivion and mind control media mafia programming. It's fascinating. But I'm digressing. Anunnaki, Archons, one and the same. If Yahweh and Yaldabaoth are one and the same, and Enlil is the one that decides because the earthlings are just complaining too much and he can't keep track of them after they did all this genetic manipulation. It talks about this, you guys. All this genetic manipulation is done to create earth people to be slaves so that they will harvest elements like gold and different precious metals. And on top of that, it's not just gold. They wanted food. They wanted crops grown. They didn't want to have to bear the work, the labor. So that's why it was done. That's why the genetic manipulation has taken place. And even look at the old school traditional evolution theory and how we went from ape man to human. Well, I certainly feel that ape man was much more capable on many aspects, probably had a higher IQ than many of us do now, and spiritually as well as in tune with the earth and nature and stuff that we don't really see with our physical eyes. I'm sure you're getting my point on this. But see, I used to not follow the official Zacharias Sitchin version about the Anunnaki manipulating man because it was just for gold. At least that's what we were told. And I haven't read all of Zacharias Sitchin's work, so I can't give you details of his work. I have read Sumerian texts that were translated by other people that talk about the Anunnaki, Enki, Enlil, the Great Flood, Nibiru. Now, I just did a Sumerian reading on that was translated from some people at Oxford University. And this translation talked about Enki going to Nibiru. But it didn't really give me a good enough description of Nibiru to say it's another planet, because Enki was getting drunk during this. He was drinking beer and some other whiskey or something in this scripture, in this old scripture. I mean, they could be 12,000 years old. They could be older than that, because the Sumerians date back to at least 6,000 BC. And they're writing stories from previous stories, kind of like the Genesis that you read in the Bible. So if you start connecting all this, guys, and if Yahweh is Yaldabaoth in the Gnostic texts, in the Nag Hammadi scriptures that were heavily suppressed and still are to this day, but you can fortunately buy them if you know where to, just look it up. If you know what to look for, they're not suppressed. You just have to know what to look for now. Well, most of those Gnostic texts were burnt in the Library of Alexandria and the Crusades and other religious inquisitions that took place. Well, these giant religious institutions did their best to get rid of all those scriptures and all those texts. Well, some of them have come to light now, and I've been doing analysis on those as well. But the Archons are talked about heavily in the Nag Hammadi. And the Archons are these demigods. And Yaldabaoth creates all the other Archons in his image. Azazel and Azathoth and some other names that I can't remember off the top of my head. So if that being said, if Yaldabaoth created all the other Archons in his image, all these angels per se, well, and Yaldabaoth is Enlil, well, that's the Anunnaki right there. It's one and the same. Sumerian tablets going back at least 6,000 years, talking about the flood, and the flood to come, also before it happened. So if that's the case, if these were written 6,000 years ago, then the flood had to have been at least 6,000 years ago, obviously. So that begs the question is, how long ago did the flood actually happen? And is that why when you look at the Sphinx and you look at the pyramids, you see like weathering from large amounts of water? It's just fascinating indeed. So do some research on this, guys. Archons, Anunnaki, one and the same. Watchers, most likely the Anunnaki and the Archons. The Nephilim, could those with Rh negative blood be an offshoot of the Nephilim? Is that why it's such a small percentage and there's so many really incredible anomalies associated with the Rh negative bloodline? Is that why so many people attack just the thought of that bloodline because it freaks them out because they don't know what to expect? Remember, we hear about the storyline of the victors. And are the victors the good guys or the bad guys? I don't know. I can give you my opinions, my theories. Once again, that's what this is. It's a theory. It's an opinion. If you connect all the evidence that we have access to, all the evidence that I have had access to thus far, that's where I'm going with this. LeakProject.com. Be the change you want to see. More like you and myself. There could be some minor traits there. I don't look at them as people that are bad. I think that this whole battle that we see in these scriptures that go back thousands of years, at least 6,000 years to the Sumerian translations, which probably predate that, pre-flood, pre-deluge, etc. Well, if that's the case, hey everybody, this is Rex Bear with Leak Project. I've been doing a lot of research and deep thought into the Archon Anunnaki connection. Now, when I read the Epic of Gilgamesh and connected that to the Holy Bible, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Enoch, the Watcher, some people also, I'm included in this band camp, think that the Watchers are the Anunnaki. Now, the Nephilim are something completely separate according to these scriptures, such as the Book of Enoch, the Book of Giants, and the Nephilim, I think, are also still around and walk among us today, but look a lot, etc. Yaldabaoth, in my opinion, from the research that I've done, is Yahweh. And Yahweh, from the research that I've done, is Enlil. So if you read the Atrahesis or the Epic of Gilgamesh, those predate the Genesis version of the Bible that you have access to. Now, to add to this, Mauro Bellino, a translator that speaks multiple languages, he also worked for the Vatican for several years translating scriptures, and he talks about the Anunnaki as well. Now, you can call them the Anu or the Anunnaki, and it's up to you what specific title you want to give them.